there are a ton of good values falling in these 2023 Dynasty startups at the wide receiver position that you have to know about. Go get these guys on your roster. You're getting them in late rounds. They are absolutely going to outperform where they're being drafted right now. We're going to give you quite a few guys here that you should be targeting these later rounds of your rookie drafts, getting good deals on these somewhat veteran wide receivers. Some of them still young, though, even. There are some young guys here that we're going to buy. So first, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. As always, we are going to release all kinds of Dynasty content the entire off season, and we'd love it if you subscribe to the channel and support us. Make sure you check out our locals page where you can get access to our Discord. That's where all of our exclusive content is. Trade advice, our ADP data, listener leagues. We've got our second listener league is now open, so if you'd like to get in a league with us, make sure you head over to locals for our supporters. We're opening leagues, and we're still doing that. So check all of that out, and let's get into it. So, having done a fair amount of these startup drafts already, I think I've done 3. I think you've done 1, right?
Correct.
We have already started to identify some of the values that are falling in these drafts. And so, I like to think that as the offseason goes on, I get better at drafting these teams because I start to realize where the value is falling, where I'm consistently getting nice values on players. And what tends to happen almost every year is with these wide receivers, there are somebody that people are fading because they didn't perform as we expected them to, but where they're just fading them too much, or there's somebody that's being faded because of age. I think people forget a lot of times that we play Dynasty and not redraft because although, Mike Williams did not perform to the level that he was capable of last season, Mike Williams is playing with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert has a new offensive coordinator, and Mike Williams, granted he has to stay healthy, is also playing alongside a receiver in Keenan Allen that a Chargers beat reporter reported today, I don't know if you saw this, that Keenan Allen's actually a cut candidate for them because they'd save a ton of money cutting him.
Wow.
So if that's the case, let's just start there with Mike Williams. I did a startup draft this week. I'm doing a startup draft right now, actually, with our DD Listener League 1, so shout out to those guys. I got Mike Williams in the 9th round. And look, the fact that we're getting these receivers where we're getting them means that you're probably going to want to go to the comments and say, yeah, that's not really good value, because the fact that we're getting them here means that everybody thinks this. So these are just guys in our opinion that we think are good values. Mike Williams is one of them. Mike Williams, obviously you saw in the previous year in 2021, he was a wide receiver 1. Him and Keenan Allen both. Justin Herbert supported them both. And obviously this last year, that offense took a step back. The coaching was just completely abysmal. I don't even want to get into it.
And they kept him.
I know. They at least are going to have a new offensive scheme, and regardless of who's there, Eckler's going to get his own, and Mike Will's going to get his own. So Mike Williams, obviously, is he 28 now?
He is 28.
I think he turned 28.
28 years old.
I don't know why we're looking at wide receivers at 28 and saying, well, it's time to ship them off. Especially when you're getting in the 9th round tied to an elite quarterback, proven that he can perform at a wide receiver 1 level.
Yep.
At this point in your career, draft capital doesn't matter. He has first-round draft capital, though. So with Mike Williams, do you have any concern about him being hurt?
No.
I don't think so.
It was just a tough year for everyone on the Chargers. Herbert broke his ribs. Herbert was not
and he had
the best he could have
shoulder
been.
Thing too.
The shoulder
thing. Played through the whole season.
Mike Williams is a big dude. He's going to take the contact. He's going to get banged up just like everyone else in football does. He played 11 full games this season. I know his points per game are kind of warped a bit because of him, playing in 2 extra games, but his snap percentage was way down because he didn't play the entire time. So if you adjust, I'm adjusting here, basically adding all 11 of his fully played games this season, and his points per game was 15.16, which is just under what he did in 2021. As a wide receiver 1, 15.4 points per game. This is round. Yeah, and that's exactly what we predicted that he would do this season, barring the injury and barring, obviously he was wide receiver 32 or whatever on the year in total points, but points per game, he was a wide receiver 1 again. So look, we cannot stand Brandon Staley and we cannot stand Kellen Moore as NFL coaches.
Correct.
We don't think the Chargers are going to do anything of really significant relevance so long as they're coaching there. Fantasy is a completely different story.
Yes.
Kellen Moore going to the Chargers actually, I think, is a really, really big deal for Mike Williams because of their pace of play. So since Kellen Moore was in the offense in Dallas for the last 4 seasons, they were like top 5 in pace of play every single year. That means more passes from Justin Herbert and actually Austin Eckler getting more time as well.
And whoever the running back is too.
Whatever running back they get. Everyone in that offense is going to get more opportunities. And that, again, for fantasy is going to be awesome. So with Mike Williams, I don't even care if they draft a receiver, because if they end up, cutting Keenan Allen
Mike Williams is
a veteran. And if any of you guys watch the Chargers games like we did last year and watch Mike Williams, he is not slowing down. No. He is not a bad receiver.
He commands targets. Injuries either.
Yes.
I see the concern. And I know you want to go down in the comments and say, well,
the injuries.
The injuries. Well,
I really do understand.
But again,
in
the ninth round, he's worth taking a shot.
Absolutely,
that's what we're going on. And, production based on price and where that value is. And then Cortland Sutton's the next guy. Now thanks. Now with Cortland Sutton, a little bit of a weird year because he came out and was playing very well and he was producing at a very high level at the beginning of the season. I think Russell Wilson really liked targeting him. You heard it, kind of through training camp. The storyline was that Cortland Sutton was really, connecting with Russ. You saw it on the field. He was doing a lot in terms of receptions and yards and was the clear-cut wide receiver 1 there. And then things started to shift. Number 1, Russell Wilson was but number 2, Jerry Jeudy actually started to step into his own a little bit, which is kind of hilarious because Jerry Jeudy's another guy that is being drafted at pretty much the same place as he was last year, and he actually flashed this year, and now you've got Sean Payton coming over there. But even Cortland Sutton, you have to consider the offensive scheme is going to be completely different. I will say that Hackett was awful, and I think Nathan agrees.
Awful.
And so, I think Russell Wilson's going to be better, but I think as a result, his receivers are going to be better. I think Dulcich is going to be better. I think Cortland Sutton's going to be better. I think Jerry Jeudy's going to be better. But with Cortland Sutton, what's his ADP in our model? I think it's like
he is
11th or 12th round.
Start of the 13th round.
The 13th round,
126.3. So he dropped 4 full rounds.
Like guys, I get it, but his efficiency metrics are middle of the road. I would say against the man defense, they're fairly good. But with Cortland Sutton, he's just he's in an offense that's going to throw the ball a fair amount. They're still going to. Sean Payton is looking to get the most out of Russell Wilson that he absolutely can. And Cortland Sutton is a big part of that. If you don't think that defenses aren't worried about stopping Cortland Sutton, well, you're just not wrong. Whether I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 there or not next season is fairly irrelevant because I'm almost certain that he's going to produce at a level higher than him being worthy of being drafted in the 13th round, especially at 27 years old.
Yeah, the contract, there's a lot to say about his contract too. I know they re-signed him in the middle of 2021, and he does have a potential out in 2024 where they could save $35 million. But again, that's going to be up to Sean Payton, and I don't know if they don't have the draft capital to replace Cortland Sutton anytime soon. The Broncos don't. So I could really see, talk about an upgrade at coaching. Sean Payton will make anyone in that offense look good. He just will. We are so far from being Cortland Sutton lovers on this show. We have been not fans of him since everyone was high on him last year unnecessarily. And we said that Jerry Jeudy was going to be the alpha wide receiver there, and it turned out that when he was healthy, he was. And Cortland Sutton he's being faded a little too much right now. And for what you're going to get from him, he still had over 10 points per game this past season. If you're getting that in the 13th round, that's pretty nice. And that was definitely the floor of what people expected from Sutton. I don't think he's going to do that again. I think he could get a little bit of uptick in production next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Tyler Lockett is the next guy we're going to talk about here, and I think if I had to guess, his ADP is at the beginning of the 12th round or something around there.
Yeah, it's actually real close to Cortland Sutton. It's the end of the 12th. I'm sorry. I've been doing my math wrong. Tyler Lockett's ADP is at the start of the 11th, and Cortland Sutton's is the middle of the 11th, not the 13th. But
how are you 2 rounds off?
Because I
don't want to know. Anyways, so Tyler Lockett. Look at what he did last year playing with. I guess it's not anything to say he's playing with Geno. Geno played well last year, but he produced at a wide receiver 1 level at 30 years old. He just turned 30, and I know at some point you're looking to get out on these guys. 30 is more than 28. I'll give you that. I know at some point you're looking to get out of these guys, before they end up losing all their value. And with Tyler Lockett, I mean, what do you actually, if you're a contending team, what are you selling Tyler Lockett for right now? Like a late second, maybe? So
at this point, with the depth of 23, it's even hard to get a late second for him.
So exactly, early third. So I don't know. It just seems like going and selling. You might as well at this point, when his value is in the 11th round or past, you might as well ride Tyler Lockett out, because he's proven. Obviously, this year he had 117 targets. He had 1,000 yards receiving, but more importantly, he had 9 touchdowns. I mean, look at the last 3 seasons for Tyler Lockett. He has 10, 8, and 9 receiving touchdowns. His receiving touchdown, he's proven that he's a touchdown threat. And when you're looking at evaluating guys for dynasty leagues, for fantasy leagues in terms of points, you're looking for those touchdown scores, especially in a league like ours where you're getting 6 points per touchdown, and that's a huge bonus. That's a huge bonus. I mean, with Lockett, I get the concern. The yards per reception this year was down from last, but 14.8 or something around there fantasy points per game. Might have been more in PPR leagues. It's a very cheap option. I think they're going to continue to. I mean, it's Pete Carroll. That's the nice thing about the Seahawks is the system, and they're going to keep doing the system, and Tyler Lockett is going to continue to get his own. I don't think he's necessarily slowing down yet. He hasn't really struggled with injury outside of him being bald and his hair being gone.
That's an injury.
He's somebody that I'm drafting in the 11th or 12th round of every startup right now. Tyler Lockett, and this is a fun fact, Tyler Lockett was my most rostered player in Dynasty leagues last year. And it sucked because he broke his finger in the playoffs, and
that messed all of us
I kind of got unlucky, and I lost a couple games because of that. But he got me quite a few top 2 seeds and into the playoffs because he was somebody that I could go acquire for a cheap rookie tight end or something like that. I mean, that's classic. Don't underestimate points in dynasties. So.
Yeah, talking about cheap rookie or rookie tight ends, back to Mike Williams. I sold Mike Williams for Greg Dulcich, or I bought Mike Williams for Greg Dulcich straight up. And I know there might be a lot of you listening that actually would take the Dulcich side, but
no, that's Mike Will easy.
It's Mike Williams.
It's
easily.
Easy.
So
I don't understand. So moving on to Christian Kirk, I don't understand why people are too worried about Calvin Ridley. Yes, I remember the last time Calvin Ridley played football.
We love Calvin.
Calvin Ridley. I mean, he was a guy that I drafted going into last season when he was supposed to come back for the Falcons, drafting him in the top 5 rounds, and it bit me. I mean, it bit me hard. So I think it's fair to expect Calvin Ridley to come back and be a solid contributor for the Jaguars, especially tied to Trevor Lawrence. And, Trevor Lawrence coming into his own, starting to establish himself as an elite NFL QB. You would expect him to. I think a lot of people, though, are expecting him to come in and take that from Christian Kirk, take that wide receiver 1 role. And I don't think that's a given.
No.
Looking at Christian Kirk, 5'10", 200 pounds. He's 26 years old, so he is not old. 26 is not old. He's got, at 30s when you're starting to maybe think, okay, maybe these guys are old. But you saw what he did from a production standpoint this year. His efficiency was just fine on the Jaguars. I mean, he was doing a lot with, honestly, a lot of guys that got targets in that offense, which ended up being surprising. But Christian Kirk is far and away the best receiver, or he was last year. I think Calvin Ridley will give him a run for his money, but Christian Kirk was the best receiver in that offense last year, and it wasn't even close. And I think a lot of people questioned Christian Kirk's ability to have that wide receiver 1 role after being in Arizona all those years with Kyler. And, it's a testament to Christian Kirk, who stepped in and actually killed it, but it's also a testament to Trevor Lawrence. Sometimes you just have to elevate these guys because they're playing with elite quarterbacks. And he's playing with Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has established chemistry with him. And what's his ADP?
Ridley's ADP?
No.
Christian Kirk's.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know we keep consistently getting him in the 7th to 8th rounds. I am finding him. Oh man, where is he right now? He is. Well, I know Ridley's still. He is on his tail right now. Christian Kirk is currently going at the the end of the 7th.
So
8th-ish round.
If I've got a bet, Ridley's older too. So if I've got a bet on a guy that I think is going to get the wide receiver 1 targets in Jacksonville, at this point, I'm betting on Christian Kirk.
Yeah, no, I am too. And honestly, Well, of all the guys that I would expect to lose a lot of their target share with Trevor Lawrence finally going off in the second half of the season, it's going to be Zay Jones and it's going to be Evan Ingram. If Calvin Ridley is going to take targets away from anyone, it's going to be those two guys because there's less talent there. I mean, Evan Ingram was playing at an elite tight end level at the end of the season, but again, we don't even know if he's going to be re-signed. And with Ridley and Kirk, they'll be complementary pieces. And I mean, with what we've seen in these crazy elite passing offenses this past season, is that you can have two high producing wide receivers at the same time that aren't really taking away much from each other, because then they're two elite wide receivers. So pick your poison. One of them's gonna get the majority.
I'm
going
to bet on the guy that's been playing football for the past 2 years. Like,
I am too. I would agree.
It's I think it's interesting that people want to bet on Ridley so hard.
Yeah, well, it's funny that we're betting on Ridley too, because Jacksonville hasn't even bet on Ridley. It's a conditional second. If Ridley doesn't play, because remember, he's still indefinitely suspended. If Ridley doesn't play, all they gave up was a 5th round pick. Yep. They haven't given up anything yet.
Good point.
So just keep an eye on that for sure. I wouldn't be overpaying for Ridley right now.
Rashad Bateman is a guy that's interesting because he's historically been a guy that I have not liked. I think he's fine receiver. I think he was fine in college. I think his skill set is fine. He just never was in a situation that I was like really just trying to get him everywhere I could, especially at his price last year. Because I think after Hollywood got traded, naturally we tend to over-adjust for whoever's left on that team to be the wide receiver one. And with that being Bateman, I did not expect him to fill that role from an elite production standpoint as quickly as people thought he would. And lo and behold, he not only didn't, but he just ended up being hurt. Well, the combination of those two things, and him obviously underperforming people's wild expectations, I don't think they ever should have been that high, and him having an injury, has led to him plummeting quite a ways. And then if you could tell me his ADP here.
Yeah, he's going at the start of the 9th round right now.
So the thing with Rashad Bateman, and this is really interesting, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but Robert Griffin III tweeted after Greg Roman, I don't think he was fired, I think he left the Ravens. But Greg Roman, he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL, and his scheme has notoriously been very successful, and it was very successful with the Ravens at times. Robert Griffin III put out a tweet that we probably have on the screen now that basically implied that tight ends and running backs love Greg Roman's system because with the way that he is scheming, they are just, from a production standpoint, completely eating. And wide receivers hate his system. I think you saw that. I mean, I think Marquise Brown in the Cardinals system was, while he was healthy, on track to be more effectively used than he was in Baltimore. I think Rashad Bateman, I think he actually had some decent efficiency numbers last year in terms of yards per route run and things like that. And, it just, he wasn't getting the opportunity and then he was hurt. And so it was like, so now, I mean, they're bringing back Lamar. And Rashad Bateman is the wide receiver one, but they're bringing in, a whole new offense now. An offense probably where I would suspect that the receivers are going to get a little bit more run. And Rashad Bateman, unless they draft a receiver, which wouldn't surprise me, Rashad Bateman's going to be getting the majority of those targets still outside of Mark Andrews. Yeah,
look, he has first-round draft capital. They're not giving up on him anytime soon. He really hasn't done anything yet to show that he's a bust. He's definitely not a bust yet. We have no idea.
If we don't want to label Jerry Jeudy a bust for 5 years, we're not going to do
DJ Moore.
DJ
of
Moore.
course, DJ
We're
Moore
still waiting on
produced
DJ Moore.
Rashad
Bateman, guys, just turned 23 years old. Just turned 23.
He's got plenty of time to
we preach. It's funny who we preach. Let them develop. Let them. Wide receivers take a while to develop. It's funny who we apply that to and who we don't. And Bateman has all of a sudden become a guy that we're not applying that to, which it's just really interesting to me. We pick and choose who that applies to. If it were really, he's the wide receiver. I don't even know. From a production standpoint, he did 8 or 9 points per game, I think. He only had 285 receiving yards. He only had 2 touchdowns. He only ended up playing in 6 games and getting 28 targets. That said, again,
half of those games were not even, he barely played.
Exactly.
So.
Again, new offensive system, same Lamar. Lamar can throw the ball. We know that. Rashad Bateman, anything else on him,
No, he's a good value right now. If you can get him, he will go up in ADP. He will. I mean, whether it's, again, some training camp video of him catching a ball, something as simple as that, like he will go up in ADP. He has a draft capital. People will get high on him at some point. It always happens. So
talk to me about Mike Evans.
Mike Evans is old. Kind of, but kind of not, I mean, we've said this before. He's actually going back to back with Rashad Bateman here at the start of the 9th round. Rashad Bateman, Mike Evans.
Well, and he's slipped a little bit. I got him in the 10th or 11th today.
Yeah.
10th, late 10th is when I got him.
The late 10th. And again, if you're talking
because the Brady news is why he's
1,000 receiving yards every single year. He had 1,000 receiving yards every single year before Brady came into town. And yes, Kyle Trask is not going to be their starting QB next year. I'm just going to, go out on a limb and really predict that. I know it's super bold.
Put my Kyle Trask.
Oh, I will. Don't worry. I will remember that.
Oh gosh.
But that's like our most successful tweet.
I know. I woke up one morning and I was so grumpy that people were trying to trade Kyle Trask, and I tweeted it, and people really hate it. But
anyways, Mike Evans, I mean, there isn't much to say because his history speaks for itself. He's not going to fall off a cliff. This is what we've been saying about D-Hop for so long. D-Hop isn't just going to fall off a cliff. He will have value until he stops producing. And he's not going to stop.
Nice to not hear you not crap on D-Hop.
I never.
Really nice of you.
Yeah. With both those guys, but Mike Evans especially that we're just seeing, and a lot of this is going to be because of Chris Godwin. But again, I mean, if you're going to see the Bucs sort of potentially even rebuilding, like who knows what could happen with Mike Evans and where he could end up? Who knows what QB could end up being there, whether it's Derek Carr. I know people don't love Derek Carr as a QB in the NFL, but he does support some pretty high-producing fantasy assets.
Yeah.
And that could bode really well for...
He would do fine with Jimmy G, too.
Oh, yeah. No, Jimmy G, yeah. No problem with that at all. So,
right.
good stuff there.
Yeah. Last guy, Gabe Davis. I want you to look at this. Do you know why we put that on the chalkboard?
Because that's what people were saying Gabe Davis would do last year.
It was satire because after Gabe Davis scored 4 touchdowns in a game against Kansas City, everybody wanted to overdraft him. And look, as much as I like Gabe Davis, I don't really like Gabe Davis, like from a fantasy standpoint. The problem now has become I just got Gabe Davis in the 11th round. And now because, again, we set these high expectations for people, and we did it. I mean, James Cook is a good example of this too. We do this a lot with Bills players because I think we just underestimate how well Josh Allen moves the ball around to different weapons. But with Gabe Davis, he didn't meet our expectations, so now we're fading him too much, though. That's the problem. And with Gabe Davis, I mean, he was a wide receiver 3 on the year, right? I mean, he still was a wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I believe
he's still flexible. That's flexible. That's somebody that's flexible. That's like, is he still 23 years old?
He's ridiculously young still. Yes, I think he's 23.
A flexible. I mean,
guys, with Gabe Davis
playing with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and Simon was like so much higher on Gabe Davis than we ever were going into last season, and we ended up sort of winning that argument because he thought that he could have wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 upside potentially. But one thing that he did say that I liked was, of all the people that you're going to get in the later rounds, I would pick Gabe Davis because he will either score you 0 points or he will score you 30. And that means that Gabe Davis, like you said, is going to be flexible. You don't have to start him every week, but when you do, you have that ceiling of him just blowing everyone out.
Sure.
And that does have some benefit, especially towards the end of the season. If you start losing players and start suffering from injury on your roster and you're forced to start Gabe Davis every week, you feel comfortable knowing that, hey, he's not just going to be a consistent, boring 10 points that's not going to win me games. He could win me a game.
Yeah.
And that means everything because
on his boom weeks,
a lot of times when you win championships in Dynasty or in fantasy,
it's because Jerick McKinnon scores 35 freaking points.
It's luck. In Gabe Davis, your chance of being lucky on Gabe Davis is way higher than most other players. So
in the 11th round, there's hardly any risk.
Yeah.
Yep. People want to complain about James Conner, there's no risk.
Yeah.
Guys, when you're getting players, there's not.
Yeah. And again, let's say the developmental thing too. I mean, why were we so impatient on Gabe Davis when he did look pretty good this year?
Yeah, at times.
And and he's not going to do this every single year and produce at a disappointing level, he could do better next year. He could.
We will preface this by saying, or I guess not preface, this is the end of the video. We will note that this is just our opinion. We like these values. We think these guys are going to outperform their price. It's possible that they won't, and it's probable that you don't agree, and it's also probable that we don't care that you don't agree. So don't get super mad at us for these, but these are just guys that we like. Let us know in the comments what you think.
Tell us in the comments if any guys that we missed.
Guys we
love
missed.
To talk about it.
Guys that you agree with, even guys you disagree with. Although you're not going to change our minds, we like hearing that stuff too. Sometimes I'll read some YouTube comments.
Yeah, there's some honorable mentions that we didn't throw in here either. I mean, Deontay Johnson is a really good value right now.
Yes,
you could go far down the list too. I mean, guys like Alec Pierce, David
even
Bell,
up top, Devontae Adams in the fourth. Cooper Kupp in the fourth.
D-Hop, Godwin, like those are all always good values. But these are the guys that we really notice the most.
So make sure you like the video and make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you play Dynasty. We're going to come out with all kinds of Dynasty content this offseason. We're going to continue to grind it out, and it's going to get hot and heavy with these rookies. And so we have to have all that covered. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Make sure you check out our locals page as well to get access to our Discord. Make sure you jump in a listener league with us. We're doing 4 of those, and the second one is now open. So make sure you go to locals, check that out as well. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.